you can't just have a camera and not an editorial presence, because then you can't be sure of what the video is saying.
They said, we're not going to send a camera if you don't let a producer in there. No way, you're not going to have those pictures of them shaking hands. It's not going to go anywhere. And then they relented.
How many people knew?
Around only 10 people knew as of last night. And then about 30 minutes before the speech, the governor and some of the senior staff started telling the wider staff, and people crying. You saw Anne was very emotional. There was staff that was crying. But then there were a lot that were upbeat, that, you know, they saw that there was really no pathway for the nomination.
I don't think there's any second guessing from the camp now, maybe other people, but I think Romney really looked at the numbers, and you know, as I found out shortly after, he initially was going to stay in the race after speaking with his senior staff and then his wider staff. He went home, he wrote the speech next to his wife, and he wrote a speech where he was getting out of the race because he knew that there was just really no pathway for him when you look at the numbers.
Fox News producer Shushannah Walshe will be embedded with the governor until Election Day. Do you have any sort of prediction how much contact you're going to have? Because I take it varies on these embeds, just how much contact you have.
It does, and earlier in the campaign you have a lot more access in the primaries than you do now.
I must confess, right now this is the best job I think in the business.
I'm really excited, and over the past few days talking to people, everybody wants this job. Everyone wants to cover Governor Palin because so many people don't know anything about her.
There she is.
How you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
For the first time during the campaign, the press flew with Governor Romney to several campaign stops in South Carolina and Iowa. Like Air Force One, there's a hierarchy to press seating.
They assigned the seats with some preference to certain news organizations. I sat second.
Magazine losers such as myself were put in a relocation camp, a little gulag back here off to the side.
Flying privately eliminates all of the security hassles and most of the weather delays. There's also the advantage of talking to Governor Romney in a more relaxed setting. I wanted to find out what he really thinks about the embeds that travel with him day in and day out.
I think it's time for you guys to get a life. This is not interesting. This is not interesting. For you at least. For me, I get to meet all the people and talk to everybody. You get to just watch me meeting people and talking to people.
The campaign also tried to set up rules for the press to follow on Air Romney, but that didn't go over so well.
Initially, I thought it would be a neat idea if we could make everything off the record, unless it's put affirmatively on the record, but that created a little bit of an insurrection led by Michael Luo from the New York Times, the rebel leader.
Standing up for the free press.
The presidential hopeful let me know what he thinks he's in for during the upcoming frenzy. He doesn't think it'll go by quickly.
Each day is going to be so full of news and developments that it'll be like every hour is a new day.
As Governor Romney barnstorms his way through the early states, more press keep jumping aboard. We're a long way from when it was just the embeds, but we're still a long way from a nominee. From the Romney plane, Shushannah Walshe, Fox News.
And not be out in front of the cameras, right? Because his next appearance is after the polls close, huh?
Exactly. The next time we'll see him is when he either gives his concession speech or when he comes out and says, I won.
Shushannah Walshe here live with us at St. Anselm College in Manchester.
The Lebanese army moved their tanks closer to the Palestinian refugee camp, trying to surround the Fatah al-Islam militants. The fighting is undisciplined, with the army firing into 6-story apartment buildings over and over. Almost half of the civilians have fled the camp, but those that remain, close to 7,000 women, children, sick and elderly, are victims of this fight.
Every family has 5 or 6 children here, and they can't feed them because of the situation. The militants inside the camp, their ideology is only death, but we want to live. Why don't they let us live?
This is the 5th night the Lebanese army has pounded into the camp behind me. Talks continue during the day, but it hasn't slowed the constant barrage of fire each night.
We are asking all the parties to facilitate access to the civilian populations because we are very, very concerned about the security of the people who are still remaining inside the camp.
Military analysts say the army wants to stay away from entering the camp. They are not prepared for the street fighting or the political pressure they would receive. So they advance towards the camp, where the two sides fight until dawn every night. The Lebanese army uses Vietnam-era tanks to lob shells and jeeps that fire heavy .50 caliber machine guns. The sound alone, enough to terrify civilians.